Ladies and gentlemen, life is full of challenges. Moments when it feels like the world is against us, when doors close, plans fail, and storms rage around us. But let me tell you something today. What looks like a setback is often God's setup. What seems like a trial is often his favor in disguise. The Bible reminds us in Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Every trial, every difficulty is a canvas on which God can paint his masterpiece in our lives. The question is, will we see it? Will we trust him? Trials are not meant to break us, they are meant to build us. They refine our character, strengthen our faith, and reveal God's hand in ways that comfort and success never could. Joseph in the Old Testament was sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown in prison, but God was with him. That trial became the pathway to his triumph, saving nations in the process. You may be facing hardships today, a job loss, a broken relationship, a health crisis. But know this, God is not absent. He is actively working behind the scenes. The very pain you feel may be the very instrument he is using to launch you into a season of favor. Keep your faith. Keep your eyes on him. When you do, what once looked like failure becomes a testimony. What once seemed impossible becomes victory. Remember, God's favor doesn't always arrive in the package we expect. It may come through doors that seem closed, through trials that seem unbearable, and through moments when you least understand his plan. Trust him and watch as your trials turn into triumphs. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges at us. Sometimes it feels like the doors we counted on are closing right before our eyes. Opportunities vanish, relationships falter, and dreams stall. At moments like these, it is easy to see only the surface of our circumstances and assume that life has betrayed us or that God has abandoned us. But the truth is that these trials are not setbacks, they are setups. What appears as a blockage or a misfortune is often God's divine preparation in action, orchestrating circumstances that will ultimately bring us to a greater destiny. When we experience trials, our natural tendency is to panic, to question why we are facing hardship, or to focus on the loss we perceive. Yet there is a higher perspective that changes everything. Life is not merely a series of random events. It is a tapestry woven with purpose and intention. Every challenge we face is an opportunity for growth, a divine appointment to strengthen us, and a preparatory stage for the blessings that await. Even when we cannot see the full picture, God's hand is at work, carefully arranging events to align with his plan for our lives. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph's life was marked by betrayal, false accusations, and imprisonment. To the human eye, his circumstances seemed disastrous, even hopeless. Yet, those very trials positioned him to become second in command over Egypt, ultimately saving countless lives during a time of famine. His suffering was not wasted. It was a setup for favor, influence, and purpose beyond what he could have imagined. This principle remains true today. The challenges we face are often preparing us for opportunities we cannot yet perceive. The doors that appear closed are not dead ends. They are redirects to something greater, something aligned with God's purpose. Seeing trials as setups requires a shift in perspective. It requires us to trust that difficulties are not arbitrary, but purposeful. Every delay, every disappointment, and every obstacle carries the potential for growth. It is in these moments of difficulty that our resilience is strengthened, our faith deepened, and our understanding of God's faithfulness clarified. The trial itself is not the enemy. Our response to it can be. Resisting, complaining, or giving in to despair may prolong the pain, but embracing the situation with faith allows us to navigate it with wisdom and patience. When we view trials as setups, we begin to notice the subtle ways God is preparing us. Sometimes the preparation comes through the development of skills, relationships, or spiritual insight. Other times it is through the refining of character, learning patience, humility, and perseverance. These qualities cannot be acquired in times of comfort and ease. They are forged in the fire of adversity. What we experience as a detour may actually be a crucial part of the path that leads to our ultimate blessing. It is also important to recognize that God's setups often require our cooperation. Faith is active, not passive. Seeing a trial as a setup means making a conscious decision to trust God, to continue walking in integrity, and to remain diligent even when the outcome is unclear. It means refusing to let disappointment define our destiny and instead using the challenge as a springboard for growth and opportunity. Every trial becomes a stepping stone, and with each step, we move closer to the triumph that God has promised. In the end, the difference between a setback and a setup is perspective. A trial becomes a setup when we trust in God's sovereignty, recognize His hand at work, and choose to respond in faith. When we embrace this truth, even the most difficult circumstances take on new meaning. What first appears as a barrier transforms into a bridge, leading us toward the blessings, growth, and purpose that God has prepared. Trials are not meant to defeat us. They are designed to set the stage for our victory. Faith is more than a quiet hope or a fleeting feeling. It is the lens through which we view life's circumstances. When trials come, and they will, faith allows us to see beyond the immediate, to perceive the invisible hand of God at work, and to recognize favor where others only see failure. Many people stumble not because of the difficulty itself, but because they have forgotten that their perspective shapes their reality. Without faith, every obstacle looks insurmountable, every delay feels like denial, and every closed door appears as a permanent barrier. But with faith, even the darkest valleys become passages to victory, and even the deepest pain becomes a portal to purpose. Faith sees beyond what the eye can detect. It refuses to be limited by appearances, circumstances, or the opinions of others. While the world judges by what is visible, faith judges by what is promised. Abraham and Sarah experienced this truth firsthand. They were promised a child in their old age, a promise that seemed impossible by every natural measure. Yet, Abraham did not waver in faith, and Sarah did not abandon hope. Their ability to trust in God's word rather than their current reality positioned them to receive a blessing that defied all human logic. This same principle applies to us today. Our faith allows us to look beyond the impossible and anticipate the fulfillment of God's plan, even when the circumstances suggest otherwise. Faith also transforms the way we respond to adversity. Two people can face the same trial, but their outcomes will differ depending on their trust in God. One sees only the problem and becomes discouraged, angry, or resigned, while the other sees the problem as temporary and interprets it as an opportunity for growth or divine intervention. Faith creates resilience, enabling us to persevere when hope seems distant and when solutions are not yet visible. It reminds us that the present moment is not the end of the story and that God's favor may be unfolding quietly behind the scenes, unseen by our eyes, but fully effective in His purpose. Another aspect of faith is its power to reveal opportunities in the midst of obstacles. When we trust God, we begin to recognize doors that others do not see, resources that appear miraculously, and timing that aligns perfectly with His will. Faith allows us to step forward with confidence, knowing that God has equipped us for the journey and that His promises are steadfast. It is not blind optimism. It is a conscious choice to rely on God's character, His faithfulness, and His word. Every step taken in faith opens the door to divine favor, turning trials into opportunities and challenges into victories. Faith also reshapes our expectations and our mindset. Instead of dwelling on lack, limitation, or loss, faith trains our eyes to focus on God's ability, abundance, and provision. It teaches us to speak words of life over situations, to act with confidence even when the outcome is uncertain, and to trust that God is working all things together for our good. This spiritual vision creates a buffer against discouragement, enabling us to navigate storms with peace and purpose. Ultimately, faith is the key that unlocks God's favor in disguise. It allows us to see beyond the immediate setback to the ultimate setup. It gives us eyes to recognize blessing in the middle of hardship, courage to continue when hope feels distant, and the wisdom to discern God's hand in every circumstance. Without faith, trials can overwhelm us. With faith, trials become stepping stones. Detours become pathways, and challenges become opportunities for triumph. The greater our trust in God, the more clearly we see that nothing is wasted, nothing is random, and every moment, no matter how difficult, is an invitation to experience His favor in ways we could never imagine. Challenges in life are not merely obstacles to be endured, they are the refining fire that develops character. Character is not formed in comfort or ease, but in the crucible of adversity. When we encounter trials, our natural instincts often lead us to complain, escape, or seek shortcuts. Yet, these moments are precisely when the strength of our inner life is tested and shaped. The way we respond to difficulty, whether with faith, perseverance, patience, or integrity, defines the kind of person we become. It is in these difficult moments that our true character emerges, polished and strengthened by God's purpose. Consider the way metal is refined. Gold or silver must be heated to extreme temperatures to remove impurities. The process is not easy and the fire is intense, but the result is purity and strength. In much the same way, life's trials act as a furnace for our character. Each challenge has the potential to remove weaknesses, reveal hidden strengths, and equip us for the responsibilities and blessings that lie ahead. Without these moments of testing, we may remain unprepared for the fullness of God's plan. It is not the absence of adversity that produces excellence. It is the endurance through difficulty. Trials also teach us perseverance. There is a difference between giving up when circumstances are hard and pressing forward with faith and determination. Persevere. NCE is cultivated through repeated trials, times when we face disappointment, failure, or opposition, yet continue moving forward because we trust in God's greater plan. It strengthens our resolve, trains our minds to endure, and deepens our reliance on God's guidance. Perseverance is not simply stubbornness, it is faith in action. It allows us to navigate long seasons of uncertainty, knowing that every step taken with integrity and patience is part of a larger journey toward triumph. Adversity also cultivates humility, a cornerstone of strong character. Trials remind us that we are not in control of every outcome, that our strength has limits, and that our dependence on God is essential. Humility enables us to accept correction, learn from our mistakes, and grow through experiences that might otherwise frustrate or discourage us. Without humility, favor and success can be fleeting, for we may not recognize God's hand or properly steward the blessings He provides. Through trials, humility shapes our perspective, helping us value growth over comfort and eternal outcomes over temporary satisfaction. Patience is another virtue developed through testing. Modern culture often pushes for immediate results, instant gratification, and quick solutions. Yet, life's greatest victories rarely arrive overnight. Character built in the furnace of patience allows us to wait without frustration, to trust the timing of God rather than our own, and to persevere even when the path seems long or uncertain. Patience is not passive, it is an active trust, a commitment to remain faithful and steadfast while God orchestrates the details of our journey. Finally, trials develop discernment and wisdom. When we are tested, we learn to navigate life with insight, to recognize what is valuable, and to distinguish between temporary distractions and lasting priorities. Character shaped in the fire of difficulty allows us to make decisions that honor God, bless others, and secure long-term success rather than immediate gratification. Each challenge is an opportunity to refine our judgment and strengthen our ability to respond wisely in future situations. Through every trial, our character is being formed and strengthened. These experiences teach perseverance, humility, patience, and wisdom. They strip away weaknesses and reveal the resilience and faith that will sustain us in the seasons of triumph that lie ahead. Challenges are not interruptions to God's plan. They are essential components of it, carefully designed to shape us into vessels capable of carrying His blessings with integrity and purpose. When we embrace the refining process, we discover that adversity is not the enemy of progress, but the pathway to becoming the person God intended us to be. One of the most powerful truths we must understand in life is that God works behind the scenes. Even when circumstances seem bleak or confusing, it is easy to become discouraged when we face trials, setbacks, or unanswered prayers. But what we see with our eyes is only part of the story. God is never absent. He is always active, orchestrating details, arranging events, and positioning people and resources in ways we cannot perceive. Our inability to see the full picture does not diminish His control. Rather, it challenges us to trust Him and lean into His sovereignty. The unseen work of God often lays the foundation for breakthroughs, victories, and favor that surpass anything we could imagine. When we experience setbacks, it is tempting to interpret them as denials or failures. Yet many of these moments are opportunities for God's hidden favor to manifest in ways we cannot yet recognize. Think of the story of Moses. He spent 40 years in the wilderness, seemingly forgotten and delayed before God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. To human eyes, it appeared as though his life was stagnant and his purpose unattainable. But God was working behind the scenes, shaping Moses, preparing him, and setting the stage for a miraculous deliverance. What we perceive as delay is often preparation. And what we interpret as hardship is frequently God's hidden favor in motion. Understanding that God works behind the scenes requires patience and trust. Life does not always unfold according to our timetable, and the answers to our prayers may not come immediately. Yet every circumstance, every closed door, every detour, every challenge is an opportunity for God to maneuver His plan into place. The unseen work of God may involve aligning relationships, creating opportunities, or removing obstacles that we cannot yet perceive. It may even involve teaching lessons, developing resilience, and strengthening our faith so that we are ready to receive what He has prepared. When we trust in His timing and purpose, we begin to recognize that God's hand is present even in moments of uncertainty. Faith allows us to perceive God's hidden work. Without faith, we may only see the problem, the difficulty, the failure, or the delay. But faith enables us to see the pattern, the divine orchestration, and the ultimate outcome that God is preparing. It reminds us that even when circumstances seem chaotic, God's plan is intentional and His purposes are good. Every event, every encounter, and every challenge can become part of a greater design that leads to our growth, blessing, and triumph. God's behind-the-scenes work also requires our cooperation. While He is orchestrating events and opening doors in ways we cannot see, we are called to act with integrity, obedience, and diligence. We cannot control the timing or method of His plan, but we can remain faithful in our responsibilities, make wise choices, and continue to pursue our purpose with determination. When we align our actions with His principles, we position ourselves to benefit fully from the favor He is arranging on our behalf. Ultimately, God's unseen work is a reminder that our perspective is limited, but His is limitless. We may not understand why certain things happen, why delays occur, or why trials persist, but God sees the end from the beginning. His sovereignty ensures that nothing is wasted, no effort is lost, and every moment, no matter how challenging, is part of His perfect design. When we trust that God is working behind the scenes, we gain confidence, hope, and peace. We begin to view life's difficulties not as obstacles, but as opportunities for God to demonstrate His faithfulness, power, and favor. Triumph emerges from trust. This is one of the most powerful principles we can embrace in life. Victory is not always immediate. Success is not always visible. But triumph is guaranteed when our faith rests in God. Trust is more than a passive belief. It is an active reliance on God's character, His promises, and His timing. When we place our confidence in Him, we gain the strength to persevere through trials, the courage to face uncertainty, and the wisdom to see beyond temporary circumstances. True triumph is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to remain steadfast and faithful even in the midst of difficulty, knowing that God is working all things together for our good. When we trust God, we begin to reinterpret challenges in light of His purposes. What appears to be a failure can become a lesson in resilience. What seems like a closed door may actually be God's way of redirecting us to something greater. The difference between those who become discouraged in trials and those who emerge victorious lies in trust. Trust transforms our perspective. It allows us to see opportunities in setbacks, favor in disguise, and blessings in the waiting. This kind of trust requires a conscious decision to focus not on the temporary difficulties, but on the eternal promises of God. The story of David provides a clear example of triumph through trust. Before becoming king, David faced giants, betrayal, and numerous life-threatening situations. At every turn, he could have succumbed to fear, despair, or self-reliance. Yet David's trust in God enabled him to navigate these challenges successfully. He did not rely on his own strength or seek shortcuts. Instead, he placed his confidence in God's power and guidance. His triumph was the result of unwavering trust, demonstrating that true victory is cultivated in the heart and mind long before it manifests in the external world. Trust also fuels perseverance. Life's trials can feel long and overwhelming, and without trust, we may give up or settle for less than God intends for us. But when our faith is anchored in God, we are empowered to continue, even when the path is uncertain. Trust acts as a stabilizing force, keeping us grounded in God's promises and focused on the ultimate outcome. It is what allows us to endure delays, disappointments, and obstacles, knowing that each step we take in obedience brings us closer to triumph. Another aspect of triumph through trust is surrender. Surrender is not weakness, it is strength under control. It is acknowledging that God's ways are higher than our ways, that His timing is perfect, and that His plan is greater than what we can see. Surrender requires humility, patience, and faith. Yet it is in this surrender that we find the freedom to move forward without fear. When we release the need to control every detail and instead trust God fully, He positions us to experience breakthroughs that we could never engineer on our own. Finally, triumph emerges from trust because it aligns us with God's purpose. Every trial, every challenge, and every delay has the potential to lead us into favor and blessing when we trust Him. Our victories are not merely personal accomplishments. They are testimonies of God's faithfulness.
I'll be all right. You don't have to stay. If you've already chosen, I won't stand in your way. I can feel it in your distance, in the way you barely speak, like your heart is somewhere else now, somewhere I can't reach. I was trying just to hold us while you slowly slipped away. Now I'm left with all the silence you didn't want to say. Maybe I just held on to something already gone. I'll be fine, you can leave. You don't owe me anything. If your heart has found a way, but I learned to be okay. We don't need to fake the feeling. I can see it in your eyes. There's no reason left for staying when the love already died. Through the quiet in your voice, I can hear your choice. I'll be fine, you can leave. You don't owe me anything. If your heart has found a way out of what we used to be, I'll be fine, don't look back. I'll survive this empty space. Not tonight, maybe not soon, but I'll learn to be okay. I don't need a reason why, I can see it in goodbye. And it breaks me, yeah, it does, but I won't ask you to stay. I'll be fine, you can leave. You don't owe me anything. If your heart has found a way out of what we used to be, I'll be fine, don't look back. I'll survive this empty space. Not tonight, maybe not soon, but I'll learn to be okay. I'll be all right.